It says it's being recorded, so I'm assuming that means it's being recorded. So up front, I want to point out a few things. I know that we have questions for the lit review. We're going to get to those in a minute. I want to cover the bases really quickly. This week we start, or today, should I say, we start the lit review itself. I've given you guys some assignments to try to, or activities to try to build Lego blocks, if you will, so that you can just put them in the order you want. I didn't want to just say, go do a lit review and have you run around. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. If you're trying to figure out what all these activities are for, you should have written some stuff for yourself, not necessarily for me, that is robust enough that you can literally just pick it up and start to put it into an outline. And that outline should look like something like, let me do a second slide here. I would say if I were doing an outline for a lit review, I would definitely start with an introduction, which is the topic, thesis, statement, etc., and then the body, which should be the voices, which is really the scholarship, right? And their discussion related to the topic. And then a conclusion. And this is going to be a little different than my original plan. Originally, I was going to do the lit review separate of the research report, but instead of having you do two 10-page papers, basically, I'm going to have you do one 10-page paper, which the conclusion will be the back end of. So this means that I'm taking out a paper. I've already removed it from the assignments list. You won't see it at all. So what the goal would be here is to basically do an introduction body, to basically talk about all the things that are going on within the scholarship. So if you're talking 6, 7, 8, 20, 400, it doesn't matter how many scholars a particular lit review is dealing with. All those voices have to be drawn into the conversation so that you can understand why you're referencing them. In other words, I can't reference Madison into a conversation just because I want to say, I cited her, so therefore Madison counts, but I never really discussed Madison's new hair color, right? So that's what I want you to do with your writing, is be able to point to why it's relevant to the conversation you're having. But remember, when it comes to a lit review, and this is where it's going to get a little complicated, you tell me what the authors are saying, not what your opinion is, but what they're saying. The conclusion, that last part of the paper, is where you get to put your opinion about how all these things lead to your point. So if we want to think about this as an argument, it would be something like, I think my political appointed person should be elected because, and this is where I step out, because I give you my topic, right? I'm going to talk about my political candidate, the candidate I want to elect. Then I'm going to step out, and the body will be something like, and the reason you should elect this person, you'll note I'm not taking a side on this conversation in the current political spectrum, but the reason you should vote for this person is, and I'll go to their white page so we can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to say, I think we should make Alik's president because instead of saying he's cool, telling America to F off, you know, these type of nonsensical things that we've all been taught to say, I might say something like, he's an experienced diplomat, right? We're talking about Alik's right now. We know he lives in another country. Nobody could question that. And I could actually find references that support that. And here's where I might lay out that framework in the body and say something like, Stephanie, I'm just using first names, by the way. You should not do that for your lit review, remember? Researched his, career in international travel over 4 years. See how I'm actually referencing Stephanie as the author? And then I will go into that part and start laying out what Stephanie said. So right now we've already got a paragraph started. Does that make sense? I've said what I'm going to say. We're talking about Alik's diplomatic experience. Now, Stephanie is my first scholar that I'm bringing in that conversation. And then I might say, Aubrey writes about his time in the military during World War I, where he fought in the trenches in France, right? whatever. You see what I'm saying? All those things sort of connect together back to that first part. And each one of your paragraphs within the body of the lit review should do that. It should speak to your topic, why you're referencing these people, and then those people in a conversation by themselves. And this is the way you can structure it. So if you think about like an outline, you might do something like point. So we'll say like one is point. That's the first sentence. And then A, I don't know, whatever, however you want to define it. Artifact is the way I like to call it, right? But I know it bothers a lot of people. So think scholarship, journal, whatever, right? That you're citing. Number one, and then you'll have something like supporting quotes, paraphrase, related to what they said, not what you think they said, what they said. And then again, right? And then again. And then you might even have something that so we have this thing called a bridge at the end of each paragraph, right? Each of these structured sections within the lit review. And that bridge is important because it might say something like, well, talking back to Alix's diplomatic experience. Now, we might say, how does that connect to his next thing? We could say, during his time in the military, that diplomatic experience did something, whatever, right? We could say that he learned to do these things. And then we can start the next paragraph by talking about his military background. See how we bridge the two things by using that sentence where he talked about his diplomacy connecting to his military experience. And then through the military experience, we're going to do this again. We're going to talk about 3 pieces of scholarship or 1 piece of scholarship and 3 facts within it. It doesn't matter how you structure those elements. Is everyone following what I'm saying so far?
Yep.
I'm looking to public chat to see if anyone's got any questions at this point. And so you'll just keep doing this as you bring in each piece of scholarship, each piece of whatever you're citing, right? Whether it be an interview, whether that be, and again, people have asked about interviews. Interviews are fine if you can do them comfortably, but in the current pandemic, I wouldn't go running around to weddings trying to get infected with COVID or anything crazy, right? I would simply, if you can do interviews virtually, or you can do them via email, that's the best bet. I would not do interviews showing up to some place to talk to people in public, because if you get sick and die, you're not blaming me. You're not haunting me. I'm not going to have you floating around my apartment for the rest of my existence as a dead, angry spirit. Okay. So don't put that on me. I don't like it. So do you all understand the introduction should be something that says explicitly what you're going to talk about? And the body should be those voices in the conversation and their point about what you're going to talk about. And then the conclusion is the part everyone's really good at, because everyone's really good at making themselves the right person, right? I don't care about the facts. I just know I'm right. That's where that all kind of ties together at the very end. The conclusion's easy. It's simply saying, if this was my point, that there's a gap. And we'll use this term gap a lot. Gap just means we see that there's a difference between point A and point B. A perfect example. There's a gap between people's choice between Trump and Biden. There is an actual gap, because if we have half of America voting for one person, we have half of America voting for the other person, then it means half of the people aren't really happy with either choice, right? So that would be what we would call a gap, because we could say we really need a candidate that fits in the middle of this, that gets everybody on the same page, or at least enough people on the same page that we don't feel like there's a difference. Does that make sense for everybody as an example? I'm watching Stephanie. She's doing the masamanos, her hands shaking, kind of like, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Sorry, I don't have my camera on because my internet is so bad. I'm hoping this at least lets my voice be stable for you guys. For Stephanie's point, my point might be, well, in your topic, here's a good one. You're talking about the death penalty versus life in prison. Well, there's clearly a gap between those two things. You should be looking for something that fits the spectrum between them, because life in prison means we're paying for somebody to sit in prison for the rest of their life. I don't know what that dollar amount is. You probably do if you've done your research. There's an actual quantitative dollar amount that it costs the American people or the state to keep a person in prison for life. And there's obviously a financial cost to execute someone. So you might say, we need to find a solution that's less expensive on the American people. See how that would be a gap? Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So when you think about your introduction, you want to make sure you're setting the point, but you're not setting yourself up to just support something that's already been supported. You're kind of looking for a space for your voice in that conversation for this type of scholarship. It's not that you're trying to come up. I hate and when I was an undergrad and even a master's student, people would say this to me. You have to come up with new and exciting concepts to write about that are all your own. And that's kind of, unfortunately, I'm going to use the word, it's bullshit. Nobody writes anything in a vacuum, and nobody ever writes from an igloo in Alaska, never having had contact with other humans. There's this thing called intertextuality where everybody has already been exposed to different writings and different thinking. So when I say I want you to write something from your perspective, it just means I want you to try to find a place to critically think about the topic. Does that jive for everybody? He is a great reference point for capital punishment. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this board, hopefully, and I'm gonna go back and let's see. So again, the conclusion should just be the summation. I like better, of your points and your conclusion about the topic. Right? Is that not big enough? It's not going to be big enough. It sucks. Yeah. So if you saw what I wrote, it's there. Let me try it again. Your conclusion should be, this is for the people who are going to be transcribing for us too. This is the summation of your points in the conversation and how it all comes together, right? Sorry, I'm thinking on the fly for these guides because I'd rather do that as the person who unfortunately has to listen to this nonsense and transcribe it and then send it back to in a text format has to deal with, right? I'm sure that the jokes probably throw him off, right? As he's sitting there typing away and he's like, what did this dude just say? So that is it. Not to get too spiraled off. That is it. Those three parts. Your introduction. An introduction should be a page, page and a half. Each one of your cited articles should be a page, no less. If you find you're only writing 2 sentences for a specific reference that you put into your paper, it's probably weak and either needs more attention on your part, or you need to get rid of it and find a different scholarship piece of, reference, article, whatever, however you want to define that. I've had it happen to me. I've worked on, as a matter of fact, the example that I provided you, one of them is a doctoral level piece I wrote about 5 years ago. And you will see that at the very end, I've also added another feature we're going to talk about in a minute. But the important part is I actually was able to look through there again, even now when I was getting ready to send it to you and go, oh, this was a little weak. I should have probably added more here. So again, if you find yourself only writing 2 or 3 sentences for a specific, not a strong enough reference for scholarship. Does that make sense for everybody, including those people in the public chat that are not talking actively? I got to get at least a hallelujah out of the public chat before I can continue, because I don't see much.
Hallelujah.
I'll start singing like bad karaoke. So Courtney's asked, so the body basically is the annotated bib? Okay, so we'll get to primary and secondary in a second. It is a lot like the annotated bib, although it's going to be much more in depth, right? Where the annotated bib, you might say, I'm using this conversation between Alix and Stephanie as my point for a reference because it does something, right? And it's very narrow. It's 150 words. For the lit review, you expand upon that. You might talk about how Alix discussed pillow furniture in Stephanie's household and the wonderful gray walls that match the carpet that probably match the couch, right? And then children, you might talk about children and their onesies. Does she have a Quaker bonnet on? Oh, it's a hoodie. Oh, okay, I see it. Okay, so you see what I did there? Like I could actually expand into that as a conversation piece. Where in an annotated bib, I might just say, we're going to talk about Stephanie's family. Hello. Oh, kids are cool. Everyone wave. Everyone say hi to Stephanie's child. Hello, small human.
Hi.
You can move to Oregon now. You can move to Oregon now and get crack addiction. It'll be amazing. Straight to Oregon with you, young children. Oh, Alix has puppies to give to all the children that are in chat right now. Okay, so Courtney, primary, secondary research, really easy. Primary research is that direct research which is relevant to your topic. For example, looking at Alix's conversation. If we're talking about what I would construe as something more mental health based, we're going to have to look at personality traits. We're probably going to have to, for primary research for that kind of a conversation, look to those psychologists in history that have talked about personality as a direct correlation with the way people act in society, right? You might even look at some sociologists. So Durkheim, there's some big ones, right? Not that I'm telling Alix what to look for, but like Durkheim would be a good one. I'm trying to think of another one. Somebody has a really good one, and it's eluding my brain right now. But Maslow. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Courtney, have you heard of this before? Here, let me start a slide for this, so that Alix can go back when he is listening to the recording. So Maslow, spelled like this, is a hierarchy of needs. I think it's, and I'm riffing. And remember, my expertise is not sociology, so forgive me if I'm completely not on the ball. Remember, I'm a rhetoric and composition dude. But there's 5 levels of needs in America, in humans, right? And the base level, number 1, would be something like warmth, shelter, food, fire, that type of thing, right? And Maslow would say that that's level 1. And then we move up and down, continuously up and down that, because today Madison is hanging out at her parents' house. So her parents might be politicians with millions of dollars. And she could be like, oh, I'm mad. And she throws her cell phone at the wall in anger. Oh, Billy was mean to me. She shatters her phone, and mommy comes in and says, and I'm picking on Madison. I don't know anything about Madison. This is total bull. But Madison's mom comes in and says, oh, I'm so sorry Billy's mad at you. Let's go take you to the Apple store right now and get that phone replaced. So that would suggest Madison's high up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But inversely, Alix is basically living on the outskirts of Elko in a plastic tent, and he has a cricket phone that he scrounged enough recycled goods together to get so that he can still call his extended family to make sure that they know he's alive and he hasn't died yet. That would suggest that Alix is in a much lower place on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All this would be relevant to Alix's conversation about personality, because people's position on Maslow's hierarchy of needs definitely would impact their personality at that moment. Because let's say during Alix's random gallivants through Elko begging for money, he got a lottery ticket and he won $1 million. His personality would definitely change if we gave Alix $1 million. It would impact the way he does things. So this would be primary research for a conversation about personality traits specifically, right? Or you could even talk about, so then secondary research, Courtney, might be something like a news article talking about the suicide rates of veterans from the Second Gulf War and the PTSD associated with that, because they're not experts on PTSD. They've studied someone else's scholarship on PTSD. Does that make sense? So primary, I mean, I'm trying to think of an easier way to put it. Okay, I'm gonna get a little religious here. Primary source would be something like the Bible. It's construed as being written by the original authors, right? The beginning. Although you could even suggest that it might be secondary source because Jesus himself did not write it. You get what I'm saying? But if we consider the Bible primary source, then we could say things like the Catholic litanies and other scholarship that is written through biblical interpretation for you, Courtney, to read would be secondary resource or secondary research. You could even talk about when you talk to your minister, that interview would be secondary research because he's not the expert. He's relying on another piece of scholarship, i.e. the Bible, to tell you what to do. Is that I know it's a weird analogy, but does that work?
So
I don't see it.
clarification.
I don't see
Primary.
Courtney's face saying yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so for clarification, primary research is things written by like an expert. Secondary research is written by, like, say, a journalist or somebody like that who's not an expert but is writing about the topic. Sort of.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Primary research here, because you broke up a little. I want to do this. Primary means literally that. The source said it, right? So the source is primary, period. If I talk to Alix and Alix says he wants to get a psychology degree, and I say, well, what's your expertise? And he says something like Freud. Everyone's familiar in some way, shape, or form with Sigmund Freud. I would not consider him a primary source for Sigmund Freud because he is not. Get it? He's a secondary source for Sigmund Freud because Alix never even interviewed Sigmund Freud in person, so he could not have Sigmund Freud's experience and knowledge. Does that make sense? He could only have the knowledge provided to him from other sources. I'm still trying because Courtney's face still doesn't look like she looks like I'm not getting it. Are you getting it, Courtney? Or are you just
I just
Courtney?
don't want to talk. I got braces yesterday.
Okay, so just head nods and thumbs. So thumbs up, thumbs down. I had braces when I was a kid. I know that feeling. It feels like razor blades cut the inside of your face. Stop smiling. It'll hurt more. Don't smile. I'm not gonna make you laugh. I promise. Stop smiling. Stop it. Stop it. Quit it. See, you keep doing it. It's just gonna suck more. There you go. I was gonna say, just let the teeth out at that point, right? Okay. And secondary source. He's pregnant. Am I primary source?
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. I don't know if I'm the only one who can't hear you, but it went dead.
Okay. Now I just heard your Boston accent pop out, so apparently everything's working fine. Can anybody else hear me now?
You're just breaking up.
Yeah, it's this internet. I'm sorry. So again, it would not be primary source because we didn't hear it from Stephanie. Does that make sense? Like if Stephanie says, I want to announce something, then she would be primary source. If I say it and you're like, where'd you hear it from? And I say, well, I talked to Stephanie. Stephanie's like, thanks for making me pregnant again, right? But I was going to do that over Alix because Alix would have been like a phenomena. We would all be like, what? Oh, a new religion would be formed around Alix's baby. So, do you get what I'm saying now? Courtney says she can't hear me. There, did that help? Like I'm trying to simplify this as much as I can. Does that help, Courtney? Can you read the whiteboard at least? Uh,
In case you couldn't see her, she said, yeah, she sees it, the whiteboard. Well, their thumbs up, not verbally saying yeah, but
okay.
with her, yeah.
Perfect. Thumbs up. Okay, so did that? I hope that clarified everything. I don't want to keep going on and on and on about that. Alix, you had some questions. Can you tell me what those questions are?
So one question most of my questions were answered. Do I pull from activity 1 through 4 and put it in the And I guess we're not doing a specific lit review. I guess we're just doing like, the whole thing. Well, bam. Because that's what you kind of made it sound like. We're just doing the whole
Yes.
thing. We're not lit review.
Right. So in this case, what I'm creating is more like the research report, right? Because I want to make sure that we have time for group work and I don't want to run out of space. So that's kind of going into, let me get to there real fast, Aleeks. Just again, I want to reiterate for the recording for everybody, there are 2 sample files. One is a complete one and one is mine. And if you look, it's a little incomplete, and I want to talk about that one real fast. The one I provided you of my own scholarship. At the back of it, you'll see what I call textual graffiti. I'm going to type this on the whiteboard just because I'm not entirely sure everybody can hear me. I'm assuming they can, but okay. So in that, you'll see I reference it as textual graffiti. It's kind of it's not a coined term. I haven't heard it from anyone else, so maybe it's mine. Just by saying textual graffiti, it's mine. It's my way of suggesting something like free writing, right? But I don't like free writing because when I tell someone to free write, they will talk about Aleek's shirt, or they will talk about bicycles, or they will talk about whatever's on their mind at that exact moment, and that isn't exactly what I want you to do. By textual graffiti, I mean I want you to just sort of like throw stuff at the wall that is relevant to your scholarship. If you find yourself in a bit of writer's block, if you will, or you're struggling to figure out what you want to say, just say it. Like, I want to write about X. I'm going to do this. It's going to look like this, and this is what that conversation should come out like on the other end. That's your personal notes, right? That's your personal journal, your own personal narrative. But what that will do is that will construct your thinking so that you can keep going back and going, especially when you feel like you're getting lost, which some people do. I've been there. You can go back and go, where was I going with this? What was my point? How does this all hold together? And you can look at that and go, oh yeah, I was trying to say this, and then you can actually check and see, did my introduction say what I said I wanted to say? Does that make sense for everybody? Like, that's what you do with that textual graffiti. That's why I left it on there for you with a note that explains what it is. So if you're saying to yourself, I don't really know what I want to say, just write down what you think is important in that conversation and then revise that to be your introduction. So it's an effective way of using this concept of free writing, but in a scholarly way, not just sort of brainstorming into space. Because brainstorming is great, but it's challenging when you're trying to put it all together and you have all the information in front of you and you're going, what was I looking for? Sometimes, and it's horrible to say this, but we think we remember everything, and I can promise you nobody does. You've had those moments, especially if you live with your parents, you're having a conversation with your parents, or you live with your spouse. My wife had an experience a couple weeks back where she literally was like, I got this great idea, and she rambled on about it for about 10 minutes, and I was like, yeah, that's really, really, really awesome. It was a really good idea. Like, it was profound. It was probably a good business idea for her. And then about a week later, she came to me. She's like, do you remember what I said? And I was like, no, not a clue. And neither did she. And we were both sad because we lost out on a multi-million-dollar idea she had that we didn't write down. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So when you have a good idea, use your textual graffiti to sort of write it down for, even if it's just opening a Word document going, oh, I'm probably going to talk about this. Boom, done. Save it and then go back to it and keep using it as a journal format to fill in all the rest of the stuff. So as you're laying stuff out, you go, I know what these people are saying, but I don't really know why it's important. You can kind of look back and go, this is why I researched this in the beginning. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's a reference point. It's a visual stop sign, if you will, that tells you you've come to the intersection and this is what you should do again. So that's why that's there. Going back to, okay, so I still need to cover. So for the next 4 weeks, before we get to talking about next week, let's talk about the next 4 weeks. My goal is for you guys to have this lit review done by Thanksgiving. I want to grade it over Thanksgiving break so that when you come back, we can start the final project. is Alex's favorite thing. He's been looking forward to doing this all along. He went out and bought a drone and a GoPro and all kinds of amazing camera equipment because he wants to do this so badly. He keeps emailing me every day going, when are we going to get to this project? Because I really want to do this. It's amazing. You will be producing a major motion picture film during a pandemic, in a sense, with that. That's the only teaser I'm going to give you on that final project. Before we get there, we need to get this lit review done and out of your way. Courtney looks thrilled by that. Courtney, you're going to be you're going to be the boom mic person. You're going to hold the mic for everybody across the entire globe, since we got to have one that reaches Alex. Okay, so what that means is, going into next week, is that I would like to have an outline, at least, of your lit review to look at for you guys, not me. It's not gradable. By Tuesday. On Tuesday, I'm going to give you, it'll probably be broken up into 3 lectures of 5 minutes each. My limitations are based on the software I'm using. I'm not paying for it, and it has a 5-minute window. So once 5 minutes hits, boom, it shuts off, and I have to start a new file. So it's probably going to be 3 files. We're going to discuss peer review, my favorite topic. I will just say that all of us have probably had really horrible experiences when it comes to peer reviews, because my favorite when I was an undergrad was when we'd have the in-person peer review, and you'd hand your paper to the left or the right of you, whatever, and it would come back and it would just say, looks good, 2 words. And I was like, yay, you're my peer. You're also a Blue Falcon, because you didn't actually offer me any real criticism, right? So, and if you go look up what Blue Falcon is, I'm sorry in advance, but that's really how you should see it. So anytime somebody says, hey, I'm going to peer review your paper, and they don't treat you like you owe them money, they don't beat that paper up and actually give you good feedback, you're probably getting screwed by them, unfortunately. I hate to use the language, but the reality is that we're going to have three lectures on Tuesday that are pre-recorded that talk about peer review and what you should do. Along with those pre-recordings, I will be providing a discussion forum for you to, by Thursday, place your work into each one of them so that people can access them. So it will be an open writing space, if you will, right? So it's not that I want to make Alex's work available to everybody. He can choose what he wants to put in there. I'm just using Alex as an example if you feel self-conscious about what you're writing. But this is the way we're going to have to peer review in a virtual space, is through the discussion boards. That will mean that you will look at 2 other people's stuff. Here's the rule with me in peer review, and this is sort of, it sucks, but it's real. If I'm looking in there and I see Aubrey has not submitted something because she's like, I didn't do it, I don't want to do it, I don't like peer reviews are stupid, but then I see that she's responded to 2 people, I will reach out to Aubrey and say, I'm sorry, you can't turn in your lit review until it's period. And I just lost audio. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah. There you are.
Alex, can you hear me?
Yep.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Not anymore.
I'm going to take it now.
There you
Yep.
are.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so it's working now?
Yep.
Okay, so if you do not submit your lit review for peer review, you can't move forward in the process. This is a dead end for you, which means you will have to submit it still to get peer reviewed. There is no grading on that. This is the trick to it. If Alex doesn't submit something today or Thursday when it's due, and he decides he's going to hold off until next Friday, how many people is he going to get to be able to look at his paper without reaching out and begging people to go look at his discussion post? Probably none, which means that's that loophole, right? That's that gatekeeper thing. Because instead of me grading you and punishing you on an outline, which I don't even want to grade an outline, what that will do is that will set you up in a way that says, do it in the time that's available while everyone's looking, because the minute everybody leaves the party and then you want to have someone do something for you, you're going to have a problem finding people to do it. That's all I'm going to say about that. So again, Tuesday, I'm giving you, and also besides the pre-recordings and the discussion board, sorry, I got thrown off by the recording kicking out on me. I'm also going to provide you with the rubric for this assignment and a peer review checklist. You will use those two tools to peer review people's work. The peer review checklist has some really cool features on it. It says things like, I don't care about spelling or grammar. That's surface area nonsense. Don't focus on that. Instead, it says, like, read what the person wrote and actually say, does this make sense? Are you saying what you said you're going to say? Does this follow a line of thinking? So that will all be in that peer review checklist, which will make your life a lot easier because you won't have to be an expert peer reviewer. You will just have to be able to use this sort of tool, right, along with the rubric to go, is the person doing what they said they're doing, and are they meeting the criteria for the rubric? Does that sound fair to everybody? Can everybody who still hear me in public chat understand what I'm saying? I see face typing. Hooray. So I know I'm alive still. Perfect. Okay. That means on Thursday, you will start that peer review process. Everything will be in, which really means you've got a couple days. It should not take long to peer review. So before you say, oh, that's crazy, that's really short, a peer review should be, if everybody has their stuff in by the time we meet next Thursday at this time, by the time I'm done talking to you, within a couple hours, you should have the peer reviews done with everybody. Because everybody should have their stuff in. There should be no excuses. Does that make sense? Like, I'm telling you to set aside what we would call the Springer hour, because we've already been allowed to set aside an extra hour for leaks in the past. So we're going to set aside an extra hour for leaks in the future with the same tool, right? So that is when you will do your peer review. So it will be a full peer review of whatever you've submitted. Like I said, the very baseline will be an outline. If you feel like you can get the entire lit review done by next Thursday, submit the entire thing. I will also be actively in there because it's going to be a workshop during our lecture time, and I will be looking at stuff too. So if I see that you're putting, I might tell people hold off and I'll look at that one for you. So the more you submit, the more likely I'm going to be to look at it. Sound fair?
Yep.
Like if you only give 5 lines in an outline, I'm not going to look at that. That's a waste of my time. That's good for you and the person you're asking to peer review. But if you're having me look at it, it should be pretty robust and ready to go. I'm not setting a hard deadline on this. Again, I would like to have everything in the day before we go on like the hypothetical break. You know what I'm saying? So I would say about 2 weeks until Thanksgiving, right? The 26th is Thanksgiving Day. So I would say that I would shoot to have everything done by about the 23rd or the 24th. That gives you an extra day to sort of plan and make sure everything's set, make sure you've submitted it to me to look at, and that will give you time to make Thanksgiving dinner or hang out with your family and friends and do all those other things and have it off your plate. Nothing as a student bothered me more than going on Thanksgiving break with a big assignment still due by a professor because I thought they were being a dick. How dare they leave me with a 25-page paper while I'm supposed to be spending time with family and friends? Instead, it's in the back of my mind. I'm still mentally writing it. I still want to sneak off to my computer while everyone's in the living room doing whatever. And so I'm not doing it to you. So again, I would say the 23rd, 24th should be your deadline. This is for those people that are listening to the recording more than you guys, the repetition, right? If you don't have it to me by then, you're not going to be in trouble, but you're going to find yourself in a bad place when you come back from Thanksgiving, because that Tuesday after we get back, I'm going to release the information for the groups. I'm going to release the information for what the project is. And then Thursday, when we have our lecture, you guys will have already reached out to each other and been in contact with each other. And I'm going to help you build these things. So I'm not leaving it to you to do alone. I'm going to participate with you. Stephanie, question?
With the formatting of it, with the 3 different topic sentences, Are we just supposed to bold it in our paper and move on to the next question, or is there supposed to be like a nice flow into it? Kind of confused on.
It should have a nice flow, but if you feel comfortable, it should have a nice flow. But when it comes to peer review next week, if you've got those in there enough that I can look at it, I can show you how you might be able to better flow. So if you're struggling with flow, I will help everybody in this class and all my classes with those type of revisions. What I won't do is do the work to get you there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank
We
you.
should have you should have 3 research questions is what she's talking about, right?
Yeah.
She has one topic, but she's using 3 research questions to support that conversation about the topic. And yeah, for your outline, I would definitely have those in there as textual graffiti. Bold and underline them so that you know to delete them, you're done with the entire thing. Does that make sense? Or you know to revise them. Okay. So I've covered what we're doing next week. I've told you there's samples in the file for you of lit reviews. We've talked about the 4-week plan. We've talked about primary and secondary source. Next week, we will talk about peer review. Does anybody have any questions, complaints, soup recipes? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
I have a pretty mean potato and bacon soup.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that there's complete, like, no body language check. I'm disconnected again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Oh, of course not. Okay, well, it says I'm disconnected from public chat, so I'm confused.
We can hear you.
Now it says I'm completely. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now because I'm disconnected again. Just totally blew up. All right, trying this again. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you guys go at this point. If you have any questions, please email me or call me. I'm sorry. My internet is just flaking out hard now. So I will talk to you on Tuesday.